Hey, Teddy K here for the Best Buy blog, and in this video review we take a look at the Samsung Galaxy Watch 4 Classic, Samsung's latest smartwatch that looks a lot similar on the outside, but is different on the inside. For Samsung, the Galaxy Watch 4 Classic is a change, and a change in a different direction, more so from the software side than the hardware side. Looking at this watch, physically speaking, it's not a huge difference from the Watch 3. You still get the physical rotating bezel. The design is more or less the same. It's a little bit slimmer, a little bit thinner, but for the most part looks very much like it. Now, there is a naming change that does apply here. The Galaxy Watch 4 Classic, this one here, is what the Galaxy Watch 3 would have been before, whereas the Galaxy Watch 4 is what the Watch 3 Active would have been. So basically, if there's no Classic on the name, then that is the Active version. Despite that, though, the two watches, even though they share the same name in Watch 4, are also very similar as far as durability. This has essentially the same waterproofing and durability that the other model has. So if you are looking to get active, you don't really have to be afraid because this could probably handle it. Now, that's from the physical side, and we already know that we have a nice display here. It is a nice AMOLED that has a bit of a resolution bump from before, so it's nice and vibrant, which is always good. Watch faces, aplenty. You still have a lot to choose from there, but it's the software that matters more. And we're going to get to some of the other hardware features, particularly with some of the sensors that are in here, but it's the software that I want to talk about first, because with Wear OS, Google's Wear OS in here, we now have a different kind of look and feel as to how this watch works. For starters, this is trying to address an issue that Samsung's watches have had before, which was app support, or lack thereof. So Samsung's previous watches ran on Tizen, Samsung's own software. And even though Samsung's One UI is overlaid over Wear OS here, the app support changes considerably, because obviously now you don't have to have a situation where developers have to develop their apps for Tizen. If they've already developed them for Wear OS, you're good to go. This has direct consequences really for what you would want to use it for. At least that's what I found. Now, we already had Spotify integration before, but it works fine here too. In addition, I was using apps like Hue Essentials, so I could control my Philips Hue lights using the watch, or Shazam. If I wanted to see what was playing, I could just use the microphone on the watch to do it, as opposed to pulling out my phone for doing that. Same with Stowcard. Loyalty cards that I had stored on there would work perfectly fine just by scanning the watch instead. Those are just a few examples, but there are a lot more. When it comes to exercise apps, there's quite a bit going on there too. So you have LifeSum and Strava and Nike Run Club and Adidas and Cardiogram. I mean, all those are in there. There probably are more. Those are the main ones, though, that you typically will see. And when you do go into the Play Store on the watch, there is a section where it'll kind of show you like essential apps or exercise apps. It kind of breaks things down for you. I wish apps were a little easier to find, not just on the watch, but also on the Play Store on the phone as well. But, it is what it is, and I'm sure that will improve. For now, though, if you are looking for exercise apps beyond what you have available from the watch directly, the pickings are maybe not as abundant, but at least there's something there. Now, the reason why I bring that up is because even though this is a Wear OS watch, Samsung's fingerprints are kind of all over it. And so Samsung Health, for example, is your primary aggregator, if I can call it that, at least for data. So anything that this watch is going to track is going to be on Samsung Health. That doesn't mean you can't use the other exercise apps. It's just that when it comes to using some of the sensory features that are on here, you're going to need Samsung Health for that. So for example, Google Fit, which works perfectly fine in this watch, will not be able to collect the same data and use it in the same way that Samsung Health does. Speaking of which, Samsung's exercise tracking still applies here. So you have 90 overall exercises that the watch will track, but 6 are going to be automatic. So if you're active for 10 minutes doing that activity, it'll automatically track that. Whereas the others, you'll have to start and stop manually. Okay, so that's all there. Samsung Health covers all that too. Again, if you're using a third-party exercise app, different story, but the integration with Samsung Health is not necessarily going to be there. So that is one of the caveats. Another caveat is Google Assistant. If you're looking to use that for any reason on the watch, it is not available right now. This is as of this review. That could change at a later time, but as of right now, Bixby is your only voice platform, and well, So there are some limitations as to how all this works. And I mentioned the physical and sensory features, and that's where I'm going to get to now, because we know that there is an SpO2 sensor in here, so a pulse oximeter to measure blood oxygen, primarily when you're sleeping. But again, this is the kind of data that will apply to Samsung Health. So Samsung Health will give you a sleep score and try to give you extra insight based on what the sensor is picking up. That doesn't necessarily mean that other apps are necessarily going to do that either. So that was one of the things I noticed, is that the physical sensors that are on the watch, third-party apps don't necessarily always tie into them. That doesn't mean that can't change. It just means that off the bat, there are some limitations in that, in getting these things to speak the same language. So there's that. There also are missing things. So I'll get into the body composition part because that's in here, but a couple things that are missing here are obviously the electrocardiogram and also the blood pressure monitor. Missing if you're in Canada, by the way. Gotta stress that because it is available in other markets, but in Canada, unfortunately, those two features have not gotten approval from Health Canada yet, and so are not ready at this time. When they will be is hard to say, because Samsung has been down this road before. They have introduced these features in previous watches, and we still have not seen them even now. So I'm not holding my breath that it's going to be anytime soon, but it might be. Either way, Samsung has said that when that approval comes, all they got to do is just issue an update and they're ready to go on this watch. So body composition is a feature that Samsung has touted quite a bit for this watch specifically, kind of to get a holistic look at your health from some aspect. So this is where you apply the middle and ring fingers to the two buttons, which have sensors on them, for 15 seconds to get a reading. So now we're talking reading things like skeletal muscle, fat mass, body mass index, body water even. Putting all those things together to give you some kind of a score. It's interesting how it works, and it does seem to read these things, but what I don't gather from it, and again, this is a specific thing for Samsung Health, you're not going to get these readings with another app, is what am I supposed to do from that? Quick note about the iPhone. If you're an iPhone user, you're not going to be able to use this with the iPhone. Unfortunately, Samsung has made it so that if a phone does not support Google mobile services, it cannot speak with this phone. Of course, iPhones don't do that, so there is no way that the two can integrate. It's interesting. It's an interesting decision given that previous Galaxy Watches did work with the iPhone, but and Samsung isn't really saying why other than that, the Google mobile services thing. But my suspicion is that it has something to do with the way One UI works with Wear OS, that there's something where these two have combined that doesn't really jive with iOS for whatever reason. Could that change in the future? Perhaps, but I'm not betting on that. I think this will remain something of an Android exclusive. And so if you are looking, if you're an Android user, you're looking for a watch specifically for Android, well, this is kind of it. And as to whether it will work for a long time, I mean, that probably is a good segue into battery life, because I found that about 40 to 48 hours was a sweet spot when it came to battery life. So 2 days typically was what I would get with moderate usage. If I was doing a lot more tracking, especially with exercises, or I was using the sensory technology a lot, GPS was on, all those things, it would not last 2 days. It would probably be less than that. So I'd have to probably charge it after about 36 to 40 hours, more or less. So not terrible, but not great, ultimately. So you will be charging this quite a bit. And you can use the charger, or you can lay it down on any kind of Qi-enabled wireless charging pad as well, if that's convenient for you. If you're using it very passively, you'll find that it lasts longer than 2 days. But that's really with GPS off or rarely ever on. Not a whole lot of exercise tracking. Anything basically that is requiring this watch to do everything that it does, it's definitely going to sip the battery life quite a bit. So I'm just going to conclude here with kind of qualifying who this is for. The bar is pretty low for Android smartwatches, so that's why the Galaxy Watch 4 Classic stands out already as one of the best, because, well, it's the best of two worlds that just didn't combine before, which would be Samsung's hardware and some software experience with the support that Wear OS gets and just the whole infrastructure around Google. Putting those two things together, I think, was something that a lot of users waited for. Now that it's here, it doesn't feel totally complete. It feels like there's still work to be done, but it's definitely a step in the right direction, which is always nice to have. I'm curious to see where the app support goes and how much further we can go with that, and especially whether the sensory technology that's in here can apply or at least speak to third-party apps, assuming that users will prefer to use them, which I'm sure there would be. We don't know that yet. We don't know when Google Assistant is coming in. We also don't know also when, in Canada at least, when the blood pressure monitor and the ECG are going to be available as well. So there are still some questions that are lingering with this device, but for the moment, if you are looking for a smartwatch, an Android one that has a number of features, the Galaxy Watch 4 Classic has plenty to offer. So it's worth a shot. Now, if you are looking to upgrade from the Watch 3, just bear in mind that from a design standpoint, you're not getting a whole lot that's different, but from a software perspective, and certainly a couple of the new features, like one body composition being one of them, you will get something new there too. It might be worth the upgrade if you feel like you're going to use those features. And that's my review of the Samsung Galaxy Watch 4 Classic. For the Best Buy blog, I'm Teddy K. Thanks for watching.